You get that win week 1 against New Mexico State, snap the streak. And then in the next week, the very next week, you beat Georgia. And I talked about, I think last week when we were breaking down the Auburn game, that every coach has sort of that monumental win or that turn the corner win or that breakthrough win. And that Georgia game was it. The Quincy Carter, 5 interceptions, nobody. And you mentioned Sheldon Brown. He balled out that game. That entire defense balled out. But you guys, back-to-back weeks, tear down the goalpost. I think it was maybe last fall. I was at a bar in 5 Points. I forget exact bar. There's still a piece of the goalpost in one of the bars in 5 Points from that Georgia win.
Right.
Just talk about, like you were saying, going from the low of 1-21 to you beat New Mexico State, goalposts get torn down. Then you beat Georgia. And I'm sure after that, it's like, okay, we're rolling. Now we're rolling. Now we got it going. Like, just talk about that 2-week stretch to start out 2000.
Yeah, so we beat New Mexico State. Like, that was awesome. That was just to get the monkey off our back.
Right.
Because, one thing a D1 athlete is going to be is still confident. So we could have been 0-52 and been like, man, that was just New Mexico State. Bump that. Like, know. So when Georgia came in, and Quincy wasn't focused that game either. So he was the real MVP. He had some other stuff going on, which I'm not going to slander anybody, but he you probably heard stories about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he threw those 5 picks, but the thing I most appreciated is how opportunistic we were. And I feel like we were just like literally everybody was just foaming from the mouth. Like we were just like there to just kill everything, And that win helped us feel as though we belonged. That's what it was, because you would go into these arenas and stadiums and see the whole lore of Tennessee, their tradition. Well, what tradition that we really, really, really have in recent history to recall as Gamecocks? In terms of beating like the Mississippi States, like they had one of the best defenses with Fred Smoot and those guys back then. Like it was just like a whole bunch of just perennial powerhouses in the SEC by name.
Right.
And so once we had that Georgia win early in the season, it was just all downhill from there.
Well, Willis, I want to talk about you specifically because in 2000, like you said, you were in an offense that was run heavy, no question, wing T option, whatever. You finally get in 2000, have a big game against Vandy, 4 catches for 70 yards, Tennessee, 3 catches, 29 yards. Just talk about getting on the field finally. I mean, how much of a relief was it for you? Again, personally, the team was having success, but you started to see success. And like you said, you were on the field a lot. You were playing, whether the stat line showed it. I mean, talk about your development as a player, and then to finally start seeing, like I said, some success, I'm sure had to feel good for you.
Right. So, like, I've always been one of the hardest working players on the team in terms of, like, lifting weights, running. Like, I ran 15 miles yesterday,
Nice.
So I ran 15 miles yesterday in 2 hours and 20-something minutes. So I've just always been a beast in terms of that. What I lacked in, 40 speed, I always had great hands. So I never dropped balls in practice. And, my teammates were like really advocates for like, oh man, why aren't you playing type deal? But my relationships that I had built were so tight, I wasn't going anywhere. But when I finally got on the field, it was just like, man, it was like a euphoric feeling because that's what you're used to, like to not experience that, like getting targets and making plays and, that whole, I really can't even explain it. But just playing for Lou Holtz, it was just such a pressure to be successful because I watch a lot of these guys now drop a lot of passes, and we had a short leash. Like you had a short leash.
I know you were probably screaming at your TV during the Florida game.
Oh yeah, like on Tennessee game, like I had a pigtail route for a first down, and I extended the ball to get it over the sticks, and that wasn't proper ball security, and I got cursed out on the sideline and pulled out. Like that's what we were dealing with,
Right.
Like, and so the limited amount of targets that I had, you're gonna be like 90% catch rate, because you don't know when the next one's coming.
Right.
But I mean, I enjoy every single moment of it. That's why I jump on a lot of people in my group who say, oh man, that wasn't anything but garbage time. But there is no garbage time.
Right.
There is no garbage touchdown.
Especially not to the specific athlete too. Especially to the athlete.
But not even to their teammates, because their teammates want to see you succeed just as much. Like one of my favorite plays was Corey Jenkins in Kentucky game. Like he threw me like this 44-yard bomb, which I landed on the 1-yard line. But anyway, I mean that was like during quote unquote garbage time. But we talk about that to this day because I think that was like one of his first passes completed or something like that. So yeah, man, I mean, the memories stick with you forever. And in terms of like being uber successful, like it's a bottleneck effect. There's a lot of talented players who can get plugged in at any particular time and any particular program in any particular system and excel just as the guy who is excelling. So I mean, just rolling the dice.
Yeah, and I want to move because you mentioned that Kentucky catch, and I want to move to the 2001 season specifically because, again, you got a couple catches here and there. You played in that 2001 Alabama game. You had a catch in that one, which was absolutely insane. The first time we were beating Bama, you guys won that game 37-36. You had the Kentucky catch, but I want to jump, again, we were talking a little bit off air. I want to jump to the Vanderbilt game in 2001. You had one catch for 10 yards, but it was a 10-yard touchdown catch from Dondrell Pinkins, which I know Gamecock fans are going to remember Dondrell Pinkins' name very well. But again,
right.
Like you're saying, it's – and again, you look at that game, the game was well in hand. But to get to that point where you've been working your tail off for, years – I mean, you've literally been in Carolina for, 3 or 4 years at that point, and you finally get that touchdown catch. Just talk about that play because, again, I watched it earlier today, and you ran the slant, beat the guy to the spot, caught it, and got in the end zone. Just what that meant to you at that point and then now. I mean, I'm sure that's got to be, something special you can take with you for the rest of your life. Nobody can take that away from you.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the play was a piece of cake because the dude was trash. Like I saw him, his inside leverage, the way I lined up. I know he's like, oh, this guy's like 6'3". He's probably going to go on some fade route or something. So I just pressed him and it made him turn his hips and then went right back in and caught the slant. Because my favorite receiver is like Jerry Rice. Because I told you I'm not a 4-2 guy. So if you're not running past people, you got to be able to be a route technician. And just like I told the cornerback in Kentucky, I was like, I don't care what your 40 time is. You can only run as fast as I run. So today you run a 4.6. I mean, so that's just what it is, man. But yeah, that memory sticks with me a whole bunch, man.
Yeah,
like a whole lot.
I watched that play and I was thinking to myself, like, there had to be nothing that was going to keep you out of the end zone. Like you're like, I'm getting in the end zone here.
Right. Yeah, it wasn't, man. It really wasn't, man. It was a good one. I'm glad Dondrell got to toss one too, man, because he had a solid arm as well.
Yeah, no, I was to say, like I said, I know Gamecock fans are going to recognize that name, Dondrell Pinkins, who was the starter basically all 2003.